Okay, so talking about problems now, problems don't, overwhelm us because they are, say, impossible or that there's no solution to them. They overwhelm us because our minds are trying to solve everything all at once. So, what we are trying to then achieve is moving from I have to solve my whole life to next step. So, the movement is some progress. Now, as we do to start our session today, our practice, just spending a few minutes settling down. So finding, say, a comfortable position. And closing your eyes if that feels okay. And we are trying to narrow our attention. So even when now that we are together and we are sitting, we are feeling centered, just bringing, if possible, all attention, all your awareness to that one object. And you can maybe choose your object today. It could be the sounds around you, whether they are distant or far. It could be the body. So you could really become aware of the body, all your attention on the body. It could be your breath. So bring that one object of focus. It could be the sound of your heartbeat, anything that you can narrow down your attention to and collect it at one place. And notice how the mind wants to wander. So gently returning it. Attention, if you think about attention, attention is like a spotlight. So um, when we shine it everywhere, we can't really see clearly. But when we focus it intentionally, then clarity begins to emerge. So thinking about that. And today we are trying to, in a way, find a method to problem solve, and particularly problems that we feel are too big. Um, and because they feel too big, we feel overwhelmed, or we feel like we don't want to look at that because uh, it feels like it's beyond our capacity. So reflecting on if there is any problem at this time in your life, and when you think about this problem also, assessing what happens. Commonly, we can freeze. We feel like we don't know where to start. We keep thinking about it, so it gets to overthinking. But feel like we can't do anything. We avoid it. We feel exhausted before we even begin. So how do you think you respond to this problem or to this challenge, this situation. And also assessing, is it just the problem that comes to mind when you start thinking about it, or there are these things on the fringe, which is you could think about, say, every possible consequence, every future scenario, mistakes of the past, uncertainties, all at the same time. So when we think about, say, a situation or a challenge, is it just that, or there are many things that come with it? And if they do, then no wonder we feel overwhelmed, because we are trying to carry or solve not just one thing, but a lot of things that are imagined, that come with that future, or from our past. Back to the object of your focus. So if it was the breath, then returning to the breath, staying with the breath for a couple of seconds, and then setting an intention for our time together today, for your challenge, if you're dealing with one. And then slowly and gently you can open your eyes. Now, we have been talking about problem solving, and we've been talking about how overwhelm comes, because we could be trying to solve everything together, and not just the solving part of it, but we can imagine a lot uh, when it comes to, say problems, because the mind starts creating stories. So when you say, I have a problem or I have this to solve, it's usually not the problem. It's also assumptions. We assume a lot of things about, say, mm, even the problem statement. We assume certain restrictions, limitations. We assume our own capabilities. Then we also think of predictions. So we start predicting. If I do this, this is going to happen. This might happen. It comes with, or if we've seen others going through something, and then what happened with them. It could come with our fears. Say if we have a fear of failure, we project that into a new situation as well. It could come with imagined conversations. If I say this, then this person will respond saying that. And it could also come with possible failures. So we bundle all of this together and then call it the problem. There's less objectivity problem. So solved one part of a problem and realized that it wasn't nearly as big as we had imagined it to be. That's happened, right? Like that can happen. Um, so one is understanding that we could be looking at a problem, or we could be understanding the problem differently than it is. We could be magnifying it. We could be adding a lot of extra stuff to it. Now, one of the reasons anxiety can grow around a problem or around a challenge is because the mind doesn't do well with vagueness. Now, what is vagueness? Some examples of vague statements are, everything is going wrong, or I'll never get my life together. Now, if we think about these statements, these are not problem statements. These are conclusions. When I say something like, everything is going wrong, one is that it's not actually uh, a true statement, because not everything is going wrong. Even in a bad situation, there are some things that are going right. So we are making an absolute sort of negative statement, but we are also concluding. Uh, uh, we are reaching an end statement without really going through the process. Now, while we go through, as I said, that while we practice today, how can we take a big problem and solve it? We will learn how to write the problem correctly. Because as we are seeing, the two parts of the brain, they come into picture again. The amygdala, which is the fight or flight, threat response, it works with ambiguity. But the prefrontal cortex, which has to do with, say, decision making, rational thinking, that works well with clarity. So the more clearly we define the problem, the less space we give it. You think of your, if not the biggest challenge, then any one challenge that you are dealing with at the moment. And if you had to complete it, complete this sentence, the problem is dot, dot, dot. Just one sentence. What would it be? You had to just complete that sentence. This is the problem. And we'll come to really framing it, later on. Um, the other thing, or the second thing that comes into picture when we think of problem solving, is the circle of control. Now, if you had to imagine two circles, firstly, what is circle of control? Control here means that things that we can influence on effort with our response, our communication, we can have an impact on. That is that is in my control. So these are things I can do. Now, there are things that we don't have control over. What are these things? We don't have control over, say, how the economy will do, in the next 5 years. We don't have control over another person's choices. We don't have control over the past. We don't have timing. There are factors which, like, if we make an effort, there is cause and effect. There are things that we don't have control over or influence over. Now, a lot of our suffering comes from confusing between the two, So, um, we can make the mistake of thinking that if I try hard enough, I can influence things that are not in my control. So while we are responsible for our own words, our effort, our integrity, we are not responsible for, say, whether everyone understands us, or whether people approve of us, or whether life, say, unfolds exactly as planned. Because even for, say, how a day pans out to be, there are things that we do and have a direct, result on how the day turns out to be. But there are several other factors that come into play, and we cannot influence them. So it's like a fine balance between control and surrender, and understanding the difference. What is it that if I work towards, um, to some extent, I will be able to, you know, get a result out of. But what are the things that acts about it? So thinking about it, trying to solve problems that don't belong in your under your influence or under your control. Are there any? Now we can all tend to at times procrastinate, and we can believe that we procrastinate because we are lazy. Now, while yeah, at times we could have been lazy, but oftentimes we procrastinate because the task can feel just too large for us to deal with. So the brain can struggle to act when it cannot identify a starting point. Now, we tend to think that if I'm really motivated, I'm going to act. But it's actually the other way around. Motivation often follows action. Now, then, if that's the case, that motivation follows action, if we keep waiting to feel ready, that can keep us stuck. So then the trick to feel motivated is to take action, even if it is small, and that feeds into our motivation. So then the heart of this, or the one big learning from this is identifying at this time might not be the perfect step, because the brain is built for progress. The brain really rejoices in progress. It doesn't rejoice as much in perfection, because every time we complete. Mhm. So, so if your life, say, does not need a complete overhaul, if it needs just one small courageous step, thinking about what that could be. Because, we could think that tomorrow I'm going to completely change my health. Um, I won't eat how I eat. I'll sleep on time and much of it, because it can just be too much for the brain to deal with. So, so then thinking about, is there one thing that I have control over that I can do? And if you think about from the perspective of, say, mindfulness, or it teaches us that actually we can only live one, carrying tomorrow, next month, next year, all at once. So we can't really find peace by solving everything. Peace can begin, or or motivation, happiness, whatever you want to call it, can begin only when some action, some the place where some action is possible. Now, um, there are problems where our identity interferes with us solving the problem. So, if I believe that I am someone who cannot do difficult things, then my this sense of identity that I have created for myself, a negative identity, will not allow me to move forward on the problem, because this is my belief about myself. I cannot do difficult things. So it also becomes important that when we gain small wins, we reinforce our positive identity. So we start instead telling ourselves, I am someone who can do difficult things. I am someone who I can trust. Um, I am someone who, keeps her word. And yeah, I think we'll speak once about more about changing this sense of identity and how we can reframe um, negative views about ourselves into positive, more helpful views. But for now, let's practice together. So if you have pen and paper, then you could write there, or you could type if you are on a device. But thinking about the problem or the challenge, the situation that you're facing in life at this time. Actually, we've already done step one in which we regulate. So before even writing down, preferably we'll sit, we'll take a few breaths, we'll get our stress levels down. And then as step two, we will write in one sentence the problem, not a paragraph. The problem is that dash dash dash. And if anyone needs any help in, say, framing their problem or going through the steps, please, we can discuss it, how to do it, else you can do it yourself. So, writing the problem in one sentence. Now, the simple act of condensing this, it forces clarity and immediately reduces overwhelm. Now, as step three, you can draw a circle. And inside the circle, you can write down everything that is within your control. And outside, timing. Inside the circle, everything that is within your control. Outside, everything that depends on other people, on timing, on circumstances. And we know that we can only focus on what is inside the circle. Everything outside is real, but it's not ours to solve. It's real, it matters, but I can't do anything about it. At step four, now, is there one small action available to you today that would move anything even slightly in the right direction? So, finding the smallest step, not the solution, not the whole plan, that one small action that you can take today. And then at step five, taking that step. So, can I take that step today? Will I do that today? Maybe visualize yourself taking that step. Notice your breathing, your posture, your energy. And then reassessing the next day. So, not stopping here, reassessing again tomorrow and seeing what is that one thing you can do. So again, if you need any help with any of the steps, you could let me know. Tomorrow we'll be exploring a very powerful tool for resilience, which is called reframing. So, how can we learn to see challenges in a way that can give us more freedom, a different perspective, and open possibilities? So, it'll be something that we'll be practicing tomorrow. Uh, oh, I'm sorry. I think Vardhani is saying my voice was. I'll check that. I'm sorry for that today. Uh, I hope it's fine tomorrow. Thank you. Thank you for being here. If you need, if you think that there's a topic that you would like any of us to take up and discuss, then please and will be issues that you think you're facing and you like someone to talk about, to talk to, talk with about, then you can even share that. And I hope that today's session will actually result into some kind of breakthrough, some practice. And we'll be back, as I said, tomorrow with resilience. How do we reframe? So, with that, thank you, sending gratitude to all of you. And have a good morning, have a good day, good evening, wherever you are. Bye.